Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another live edition of Mic'd Up Sports, the show that goes in depth with the people who build our sports community. If you're watching us live on Facebook, thank you for joining us. And if you're following us on YouTube or anywhere you listen to podcasts, we're glad you can join us as well. Joining me is a Class A basketball athlete who will soon play Division II women's basketball at Augustana. Katelyn Diegnau, not a name you might recognize easily if you don't live in the metro area. That's because she attends Granada-Huntley-East chain, and the team she plays for, I've joked, could also make up a set of tiles on a Scrabble board when the players are trying to make words together, because officially, Katelyn, your team is Granada-Huntley-East chain, Truman, Martin Luther, or as I've seen sometimes when they make state or get covered, they refer to it as GHECTML.
Yep.
And so I'm wondering, Katelyn, well, first of all, thanks for joining us. It was a pretty quick notice. You announced your commitment. All of a sudden, we find ourselves doing this podcast. But when you stood up for high school games, how do reporters and announcers handle all the co-ops that make up your team?
So like you said, it's usually GHECTML. Every once in a while, you'll get someone who says Granada-Huntley-East chain, Truman, Martin Luther. Funny story, GHEC is sometimes referred to as GHEC because they think that's the name of the town. So you just kind of got to go with it sometimes.
Well, I have yet to cover that team. We were talking beforehand, a lot of Class A schools I don't get a chance to see because most aren't in the metro area. And some of them will make the trek around here for breakdown events or regular season games. But any tips? Would you have any tips? Should I cover your Jaguars this upcoming winter? Any tips on how I should approach the name?
Approach the name. Like I said, really any way you want. We've heard it every way before, so we're not going to judge you. We fully understand that it's out there. We fully understand that. But yeah, either GHECTML or Granada-Huntley-East chain, Truman, Martin Luther.
I might go with Jaguars just because it involves far fewer syllables than trying to recite 7 letters in one. But that actually is a common thread in Class A and Class 2A. A lot of the schools are comprised of small towns, and these towns aren't large enough to field teams of their own. So a lot of them end up merging. New Richland HEG is another example. And there's so many. Lyle Pacelli, we were mentioning beforehand too. That's another one. So that happens a lot. And Katelyn, for someone like you, how does that influence a sense of community where I live, you think of Hopkins or De La Salle or schools that can field one team on their own, especially in 3A, 4A, but in your case, it's often several towns coming together.
I would say it's really great for team bonding in the sense that you practice with everyone, the JV team, the C squad team. Seniors know all of the freshmen feel rather comfortable with the seniors. At least that's how it happened for me. And we have, for as small a school as we are, we have a crazy, amazing fan following. Before COVID, there would be people just from town who don't even really know anyone playing. They would come in and watch games, and we would go to some bigger towns that were around us for non-conference games, and we would have the same, if not more, fans as the home team. So obviously it has some disadvantages, just in the sense that, you know, with a bunch of different schools, you gotta drive a little bit farther for practice. But at the end of the day, it's definitely much more of a team feel, and the fans feel almost just as much a part of the team as your actual teammates do.
What would you say are the biggest challenges and some of the most gratifying elements of playing Class A basketball, playing for these small towns? I remember your mother visited me and mentioned she has to drive 20 miles to get a gallon of milk, which I don't think a lot of basketball writers are familiar with. If you cover mostly metro teams. And that's not a knock, obviously, on rural or small town schools or cities. That was a bit redundant, but you know what I'm getting at. So what are some things that come with the small town atmosphere, the challenges, but some of the gratifying moments? You touched on it a bit in terms of fan support. Just what do you make of being this Class A athlete in a small town?
Challenge wise, it is a lot harder to get your name out there, basketball speaking, just because, like you said, not too many people cover Class A ball, just because there aren't too many podcasts running around Grenada, Minnesota. I can say that for sure. And, you know, where my house is right now, we literally dug up a farm and put our house right in a farm. Like if I flipped my camera around and you looked out my window, you would see cornfields right now. So there's not too terribly much to do, in the sense that our idea of fun some nights is just driving around. But it's also kind of nice, you know what I mean? You know, there's pros and cons to every situation, but I guess some of the most gratifying things would be is, at least for me personally, coming from such a small school, anytime I would get an email from a coach or anything like that, it was just a really big deal, I guess, for me. And not only for me, but just for our program, because we don't have too many college level athletes. And then another really big gratifying thing for us is one of our neighboring towns, they're a 2A school. And anytime we win against them, that is just one of the biggest things that you would think we were having another homecoming, because everyone just freaks out and celebrates, which is really fun. Yeah, so challenge wise, I would definitely say you're in the sticks. So not only do you have to make your own fun, but also your own news, I guess, and get yourself out there. But gratifying wise, it's anything that seems small to like other people is a really big deal here, which I think is really cool.
That does make sense. And you mentioned not having too many podcasts based in Grenada. Well, you're going to South Dakota soon for college, but Katelyn, like maybe there's time for you to start one.
Got it.
So as you were saying, not a lot of college athletes come from your school. And I think you hear that a lot with the smaller schools, at least the ones that aren't private. And I think a lot of that just owes to enrollment. Mm-hmm. You probably heard about all the attention Paige Becker's got, for example, over the last few years. And before her, it was Taylor Hill and Nia Coffey and even Adalia McKenzie, who won Miss Basketball this past year. But you will add your name to that list, however big it is. So how excited are you to know that you will get this opportunity to continue playing at the college level, coming from a farm town, it sounds like, where you're telling me the view from your bedroom is cornfields?
Yep. I am crazy excited, and the amount of support I've gotten, not only from my family and friends, but just people in my school community and just the surrounding community, is beyond my belief. I was not at all prepared for it. Obviously, when I posted my commitment yesterday, I got a lot of congratulations and stuff on my social media, but little did I know, my mom also did it on her Facebook. I didn't know that until I was tagged in it, but I was reading through those comments, and it was just really amazing to see that support. And I'm just so excited to, you know, play at that level. And I've already had so many people tell me they plan to come watch. It really almost feels like I'm giving back to the community that helped make me the person I am, if that makes sense, giving us that little baby bit of recognition. You know, maybe somewhere someone will learn the name of the town Huntley or Grenada because of me, which I think is pretty cool.
Actually, I had to go back and relearn it because I'd heard of the co-op before when they made state a few years ago. But again, going back to my lack of Class A knowledge compared to the other ones, I'm going GHEC. I know I've heard of that before. Oh, it's the team with nearly the entire alphabet, ITs.
Yeah, yeah.
So the announcement to Augustana, obviously a huge turning point in your basketball career as you prepare to write that next chapter. But for you, when did your love of basketball begin? What was the first memory you recall of the sport?
So my first memory was in the 5th grade. I actually went to a different school. They're a Class A school. I went there all throughout my elementary, but transferred when I went to middle school. So in 5th grade, I was playing with a lot more girls. And honestly, I hated it the first year I played. I did not like basketball. I've always been really tall. And at the time I had no coordination. So it was not my favorite thing. But then I transferred schools in the 6th grade, and my parents convinced me to keep doing it. And I did it. And it was probably the best decision I ever made, just because it really gave me a chance to make friends at a new school. And come 7th and 8th grade, I finally got a little bit of coordination. So it made it, not only fun to do it with friends, but it was something I enjoyed doing even without friends. Like I would go shoot baskets in our shed just because I really enjoyed it for some reason. So yeah, I guess that's probably where the love originated from.
Who would you say was your favorite player growing up?
This is probably going to sound really cliche, but Michael Jordan, just because neither of my parents played basketball. And when I was younger, that was like the name everyone knew. Like LeBron was there, but he wasn't really there, So it was Michael Jordan. And I don't know, I just thought he was the coolest thing, probably because he was in a Looney Tunes movie. But I don't know, I just really liked him. And it was just one of those things where, everyone was just shooting little bunnies, at the time. There wasn't like a Euro step or anything. And he was just dunking from the free throw line. I was like, well, dang.
Not to mention 3-point shooting wasn't as ubiquitous.
Yes.
Although LeBron James is about to drop a Looney Tunes movie himself. So you know what?
Never good as the originals.
I will say I did watch Space Jam, the movie we've been talking about. I watched that a lot when I was a kid. I was fortunate enough to catch him in the tail end of his Bulls dynasty run. So yeah, Michael Jordan, it may sound cliche, but I think he was the most recognizable player up until he retired. And even when he came back with the Wizards, he still could play, as we all saw. So I don't think that's cliche at all. He only won 6 championships.
Light work.
And how would you say you've patterned your game? Because you're talking about in Jordan's era, and I think analytics plays a big part in that. So yeah, I jokingly gripe about long twos for that reason, because it's the least valuable shot you can take. But if it goes in, I always like, well, it went in. That's what matters. So when I'm calling it, but you probably have seen this game evolve from the era you're talking about, the Jordan years, where maybe you played a little closer to the basket. There was more emphasis on mid-range. Now it's scoring down low, knocking down threes. Those are the 2 primary factors offensively. But how would you say you have patterned your game when you take the floor for GHEC and then Minnesota Rise?
So it is extremely different, my playing style, whether I'm playing for my high school team or my AAU team, just because my high school team is so small, and we have a great group of kids that come out. It's just they're not necessarily doing AAU or camps in the summer. So I found myself having to play some positions where probably at any other school I would never play, but in a way it's good because I think it's made me more valuable at the next level, in the sense that during my high school season, I am more of a guard, if anything. I take the ball down, I'm driving, I'm shooting threes, you know what I mean? Whereas in AAU, I am pretty much a strict 5 just because I'm the only really tall person on our team. So, and by 5, I mean I'm the one posting up on the block. If I get a face up in a drive, sure, but it doesn't happen too terribly much just because of how our plays are set up. But yeah, in college, I'll be playing more of a 4, at least that's the plan. So they've both worked together really well, you know, getting that time to work on this skill set and then time to work on a completely different one. It's made me the player that I am now. So I'm appreciative for both outlooks.
You spoke of your height being one of the tallest players on your high school team. Your listed height is 6'1". And this is something I ask of my taller guests just to hear what they have to say. And in case any of my younger listeners might be going through the same thing, because when you cover basketball and volleyball too, as long as I have, you realize real quick, you're not going to be the biggest person, at least in my case. I'm 5'11", so I've accepted that. I have no ego to bruise there. But for you, how did you become more comfortable with your body type, becoming 6'1"? You know, the classic line I hear is that it's hard to find clothes and shoes that would fit, but being in small town Minnesota, 6'1", can't really mask yourself, if you know what I mean. So what was that experience like?
So yes, it's definitely been hard finding pants, dresses most of all. Shoes I've never had a huge problem with, just because I only have size 9.5 feet, so they're actually kind of small for my height. But yeah, size wise, in such a small town, I'm a waitress, and every day I work, it never fails, at least 5 times a day. Wow, you're pretty tall. Or do you play basketball? Do you play volleyball? Never fails. I would say I've always been really tall. Like I said, it wasn't like a big growth spurt thing. It's just always been pretty consistent. When I was younger, I viewed it more as a negative thing, just because, yeah, I definitely did stand out. And, you know, when you're that age, you just want to be normal. You know what I mean? But the older I've gotten and the more opportunities in life that I've realized that my height has given me, it's one of those things that, given the choice, I would never change on any given day. Looking back, I would rather take any mean, snarky comment from a 12-year-old girl than change where I'm at right now in my life. So I guess what I would say to any younger girl who's relatively tall, I would just say, I know it feels weird, but the older you get, the more you realize, at least for me, even being 6'1", it's really not that tall. And sometimes people put it in your mind that you're just weird, but you're not weird. You're blessed, if anything.
In my case, Katelyn, I just embrace being weird.
Yeah.
I don't let anyone put that in my mind. I just embrace it, and then they can't use it. But I did smirk a bit when you mentioned working as a waitress and people asking, do you play basketball? And I know that is such a commonly used trope, but in your case, it's true. I'm going, well, I guess, yes. It's like, although I do sense a marketing opportunity. It's like, yes, I do play basketball. You should come check us out at Granada-Huntley-East chain.
Yeah, sell some tickets.
Well, I don't know what'll happen when you go to college, but the same thing. Like, oh, by the way, yeah, if you want to see me, go to Augustana and you'll see what I'm about. You'll see just how well I can play basketball.
Yeah.
So we spoke of how you adapt to small town basketball and small town life. How does that change when you go on the AAU circuit, last year we had to play a limited schedule, of course, due to the pandemic. This year we had to start with the protocols, but midway through the season, everything was back to normal. And on a tangent, I'll never forget how weird I felt when I saw bleachers, concession stands, and I'm going, yeah, this is going to take some getting used to. But you're playing in the community centers. You're playing, in Shakopee, the Bloomington schools, Forest Lake, I know, can host events, a lot of the larger schools. And you are sharing the space with hundreds of athletes from high school teams all over the state, some are from around the Midwest. So probably one of the largest crowds you see throughout the year. How do you adapt to that, to, getting that taste of city life when you're having to play these tournaments in Jefferson High School or Shakopee or other places that can host multiple courts and multiple teams?
Well, one thing I always say to my teammates, because they all go to 2A or 3A schools, is this school is like our mall times 4. I always jokingly say that, and then they laugh at me. But I guess adaptation-wise, it's never felt that weird to me, I guess, just because I know there's hundreds of thousands of athletes out there, let alone in basketball and around Minnesota. And I don't know, it's never really felt that weird. I guess the most like adaptation that I've had to learn is what my first year of playing AAU is realizing there are girls way taller than me, because until I did AAU my first year, I've always just towered over people. So I distinctly remember the first time I played a 6'4" girl. I was only like 5'11" at the time, and my mom has so many pictures. She was just as shocked as I was. But it really helped me grow as an athlete, because I know if I hadn't played girls bigger than me, I don't know if I would have put nearly as much work in as I have, just because I was always just able to rely on my size. And it's always really fun to play those bigger girls, because I don't know what it is. There's just like a switch that flips in me, and I box out harder than I ever have before. I swear my vertical goes up like 4 inches to like get rebounds. So I guess that was probably the area that I had to do the most adapting in.
So what you're telling me is that if we were to go one-on-one, I might have a chance.
Yes, I believe in you.
Because you might underestimate me being a couple inches smaller than you. But if I were 6'4", 6'5", then it would be a hard time.
Yeah, beast mode.
Okay, so anyone who has to go against GHEC next season, just yeah,
kids.
Yep. Whoever your 5 is, make sure she's smaller than Katelyn. I tease, of course. There's a little more to that than just height. So you mentioned this earlier too, how it's harder to get your name out when you're playing at a smaller school. What was the college recruitment process like? How many offers did you get? And when, if you recall, when did you receive that first offer to play college basketball?
Okay, so the recruitment process, especially with COVID, it was definitely weirder than what other people prepared me for. I'm fortunate enough to have a girl who graduated from our school. She actually played at MSU, so she's been a great outlet for me, just handling what I need to do to get my name out there. But it was definitely a process, not only because it was a smaller school, but there was a while where, we just had other priorities. So we just, you know what I mean? And then came the NCAA rule saying everyone got an extra year, which was really scary, because I was like, oh, great. Everyone's going to come back and there's going to be no scholarships and my dreams are to be crushed. And I was just scared and going through a breakdown for a bit, but we're good now. But I would say the best thing that got my name out there was AAU, honestly. just playing those bigger schools, because I mean, coaches come to watch the kids that go to the class 3A, class 4A schools, and every once in a while I'll catch one of their eyes and they'll look into me, and that's honestly been the biggest thing for me. Offer wise, I think my first offer would have been last fall, from a D3 school. I'm not going to say names just out of respect for them and everything. Besides them, I received 3 other offers, not including Augustana, so 5 in total. And the biggest hurdle when it came to that was being able to tour the schools, especially with COVID. I mean, you could go and walk around, but you couldn't meet the team. You couldn't really go into a lot of the classrooms. So, and my big thing is I love basketball, but I'm not going to make my college decision based on that. Like, I want to go to a school where I would go there, even if I wasn't going there to play basketball. So that was another thing that was a little overwhelming, but you know, I just kept praying about it, and God just put all the pieces together that I needed him to, and I couldn't be happier with where I'm at.
What led you to Augustana?
So, funny story, the first time I toured it, they were actually the first school I toured. I did not like it, just like basketball. First time around, not for me. And they were not on my radar at all. I was more interested in Bemidji State, USF actually, which is in Sioux Falls, obviously. But then all of USF seniors came back, so there was no scholarship opportunity there. And kind of like I said before, Coach Kraft, their head coach, he saw me and he liked me and he got in contact with me. And I just really loved how fatherly he was, I guess. If you know him, he's an older gentleman. So I just thought that was kind of funny. And he was like, hey, do you want to come up for a visit? And I said, sure. And I came out and I met with him and the assistant coaches. And I don't know, just the whole vibe I got from the school and from them, it was just everything I was looking for. And I really love the town of Sioux Falls. So it just worked out perfect. And then the next time I came out, I met the team and I really loved them. They were all so nice and down to earth. And a lot of them actually came from smaller towns. So I really just could connect with them. And like I said, all the pieces just kind of came together and it was perfect.
I'm sensing a theme here, Katelyn. If you don't like something at first, then you're probably going to find you'll develop an affection for it.
Yes.
Another question I have related to your basketball career, and I'm curious to hear what your answer is on this with your background, again, playing more small town basketball with the AAU circuit and then maybe the occasional invite from Breakdown or other groups. But what are some gyms that stand out in terms of places that you play? What are some venues that you look forward to going to? And it could be your home school, or it could be schools you visit on the road, neutral site.
So my school is actually really lucky. When we used to have an elementary school in the East Chain part of GHEC, and then they closed down and everyone moved to the Granada school. So they had to put a new gym on, and it is just beautiful. It's only a couple years old. It really reminds me of the U of M gym just because the floor is kind of white. It's got like a white paint over. I think it's really pretty, really nice new locker room. So I really enjoy home games, not only because it's a home game, but because we do have a really pretty facility. And we have AC. That's one thing with Class A schools. You are never guaranteed AC. I don't know if that's for like bigger schools too, but it's a 50-50 shot that you might be just drenched by the end, or if you will be sweaty but okay. So love that AC in our school. I guess that's probably the only facility in my high school team that like I would go to, just because it's probably the newest. Don't mean to sound rash, but and you know what I mean? At the end of the day, a gym's a gym. If it's got 2 hoops and a scoreboard and a center circle to jump, I'm just excited to be there. I would say AAU-wise, Shakopee has a very nice facility. They have so many gyms. They are the only school or like gym that I've been to where I don't mind their artificial floor. I will always prefer wood, but they have a decent artificial floor. So I do appreciate that in them.
I know what you're talking about, Caitlin, and I haven't played a single minute, but at Forest Lake, I think they use the vinyl floors too in their multi-court setup, and Shakopee has kind of that mix, so it can affect grip, as we've seen sometimes. Players can be slipping a little more, not used to that surface compared to the hardwood that everyone's used to. What do you think your presence will do to help galvanize or help put a spotlight on athletes like yourself? Because I imagine you got a lot of likes, retweets, all of that yesterday when you made the announcement. And maybe you don't get the press or the hype that follows Paige Beckers, for example, or some of the top athletes here, but the folks in your community, they all know who you are now. And I've got a feeling some of those guests you waitress for at the restaurant or whatever establishment you work, they might pick up a paper or read an article and go, "Hey, I've seen her before." So
I had to laugh there a little bit because there are so many older gentlemen at the cafe that I waitress for that are just regulars. And on my first day, "Hey, you're tall, you must play basketball." And I told him my story. And the other day I wore my Augustana t-shirt to work, and I got to telling him that story. And it was the best feeling to watch the smile come across their face, because they plan to be at every high school game and now every college game. So it's really just amazing to see, like I said, the support just for people that I really personally don't know, but they're just so excited to see someone succeeding in that area, when not many people from our community, even partake in that area. Yeah, it's just been a really big thing for me, because anytime where I'm like, I don't know if I'm good enough for this, I'm like, the old guys from the cafe think I am. I must be. They're coming to watch me, Caitlin. You can't quit now. Got people to please.
you've got you've got people to please. I'm like, I hope the person at the top of that list is yourself, because you're the one in charge of your journey. You're the one in control of your destination. But I can see it now. I-90 is going to have this convoy of Vikings fans, or soon to be I believe that's their nickname, right? And going all the way to Sioux Falls.
Yep. You best believe it. Earl and Bernie, they get decaf coffee and they're coming.
How hard was it to play through the pandemic protocols? Your season ended before the state tournament. I think you were knocked out in the first round of sections, so that wasn't an issue, but you had to play a shorter season this past winter. AAU, again, shorter season last year, and up until late May, we still had to wear the masks and still had to follow all the protocols. And for me, it's like, if that's what I got to do to cover games, I'll do it, because I don't want to be the next. I don't want to go viral for the wrong reasons, if you know what I mean. But how hard was it for you and everyone else to adapt to that, where you talked about having sellout crowds and knowing you had capacity limits? It sounds like that won't be an issue, or at least not as much as last winter, but I imagine everyone noticed the oddity of the situation.
Oh my goodness. I have to tell you, if you walk away from this with one thing, let it be this. You do not tell a 60-year-old farmer what to do, especially when that involves something he didn't really agree with in the first place. So, and like I said, we can spit to the Iowa border. So it was a tad bit difficult to get people to adhere to said protocols, even during the games. And I just feel so bad for the people who had to like make sure things were, because it probably was a job. I know for me as an athlete, wearing a mask was something I seriously dreaded, just because I do have sports-induced asthma. But I didn't get like an exemption. It wasn't enough for an exemption. So I was really nervous about that, just health-wise. But I will say, as the season went on, it wasn't great by any means. It definitely put a strain on the lungs, and when someone was shooting free throws, you took your extra breaths while you could get them. But it wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be, which is a godsend, honestly, because I was, again, really just scared about that. Crowd wise, we did not lose a single fan from our fan base. This probably has to be one of the most redneck things that you will hear all day, but what we did is we got the not the Baller TV, but the streaming service that like our conference streamed all our games on, and someone would get it and they would go to the bar in Grenada and they would hook it up to the TV, and everyone would come to the bar and they would be eating food and having drinks while they watched this game on the big TV, because there was only so many tickets and half people didn't want to adhere to the rules anyways. So there were just a bunch of rowdy Jaguar fans in the bar watching this game on the big TV. And yeah, no, so we didn't lose a single fan from our fan base. They just went about it in a very different way. But I kid you not, it might stick, because I think they enjoyed being able to eat their wings and watch their game, kind of like an NFL game. But my school, fortunately, we never had a case. We never had to quarantine. So that was really nice. We had a couple games that got canceled because either someone on the other team did, or later on in the season, one of the schools in our conference had a pretty good chance to go pretty far in playoffs or potentially make it to state. So they would canceling their games at the end just for, safety reasons. So they wouldn't have to quarantine during state or anything. But yeah, no, luckily we didn't lose a game in our already shortened season because of anyone on our team, which was really nice. It was definitely a shorter season, but because it started later, it didn't really feel like it, which is good. You know what I mean? Just when you love a sport that much, it's kind of, sucks. But AAU wise, that was probably when the mask hit the hardest, just because we had that big long break and I kind of forgot, the level jump between my Class A ball and AAU. So there were a couple times where I was like, Coach, I can't breathe. So, but yeah, a couple weeks into that, got better, and our last tournament was the first tournament I saw concessions at, and I remember shaking my mom, being like, oh my gosh, Mom, look, concessions. And I'm just really excited that the world's finally starting to get a little bit back to normal. So it's bad when I'm screaming about concessions.
And like I said earlier, I'm going, wait, concessions, bleachers, no distancing, like this is weird. Oh. And some of us have joked that we're waiting for the other shoe to drop, and not that we're secretly cheering for things to fall apart, but I think some of us are just nervous. So I do have a theory as to why none of you got sick, because most of your friends were probably hanging out in the bar, so they weren't in the gym.
Yep.
And so they're not anywhere near you. But that is a clever way to get around the capacity limits. But it's like, hey, that's there's a capacity limit at the gym. That doesn't extend to the bar.
Yeah.
The biggest issue I had, I had to call double headers with them, and you do notice after a little bit, and I could tell like when I had to wear the mask. But the biggest problem I had were actually my ears, because in the prelims at Forest Lake and a couple others, I had to wear it the whole time, and you realize that 8 hours or so of having to wear it, that those drawstrings tug at your ears. So I had some sore ears for a little bit, but again, I'm like, small price to pay to get the chance to cover games in person.
Yeah.
But that is an amusing story. I'll have to keep that in mind if I'm lucky enough to cover one of your games this upcoming season. I'll have to maybe whoever that bar is, maybe I'll give them a shout out or something.
Yeah. They have really good burgers.
What was that?
They have really good burgers.
Oh, what establishment?
Oh, the Granada Bar and Grill.
Okay. I suppose in a small town, you don't need to be too.
There's like one thing in the whole town, so it shouldn't be that hard to
I was
find.
gonna say, you don't need to worry. You don't have to get too kooky with the names.
Yeah.
Compared to here, that is. So, a few things I like to ask of my guests. Actually, I borrowed this from the breakdown book, which I subscribe to now to help give me an edge in research. But beyond basketball, what are some other activities, hobbies, things that you do that we might see you participate in?
Yeah. So I also play volleyball in the fall. And I actually used to play golf before I started AAU. That's something I'll still do every once in a while, just for fun with some friends. It's really entertaining to watch the boys who have a baseball swing trying golf. I waitress, like I said, and I'm also a lifeguard. So I'm burnt usually all summer. We have a camper like literally maybe a mile away from the Iowa border. So that's really fun to go to in the weekends. It's got a big lake and we have a boat, so it's really fun. I work for my dad, who is actually, again, this is gonna be pretty redneck. He's a farmer, and then he's also the district sales manager for Stein Seed, which is a seed company. It's like the stuff, just the seed for like corn and soybeans and stuff. So most of my summers, if I'm not playing basketball or lifeguarding or at the camper, I'm usually in our big beat up white truck with a bunch of seed bags in the back, driving to a bunch of other small towns to meet up with other dealers. So yeah, it's usually what you'll find me doing.
On a related note, what would you say is the most unusual thing about yourself that people wouldn't necessarily know about you if they met you for the first time?
So I play the tuba, which anytime I mention that to anyone, they're just very much in shock. So I guess whenever I've been asked that question before, that's usually the response I give. But I play the tuba, and I am a huge Harry Potter fanatic. So those are usually my two answers to that question.
Well, on the first part, I don't know too many fellow tuba players out there, but I do know a few Harry Potter fans that I could connect you with, perhaps. And of course, I remember. Well, I'm dating myself, but I remember the movies came out when I was in high school and then wrapped up not long after I finished college. So I remember life in the midst of that Harry Potter craze.
Yep, and it goes on.
Oh yes, it's still going on. And throughout your athletic career, Katelyn, what would you say was the most exciting moment and the most embarrassing moment?
Okay. I'm gonna have to think about exciting. So we're gonna start with embarrassing, just so it's over with. So my freshman year, I was playing on B squad, and my team had the ball, and I went to pass it, and I don't even know, my teammate just didn't go get it. I don't know. She like knocked it away instead of grabbing it. And we were at the top of the key, so it kind of rolled across the half court line, and I grabbed it, and I literally like went to hand it to the ref, And then he called me for a travel in front of everyone. And I was like, what, aren't you gonna call an over and back? He was like, no, the other girl hit it. And everyone was like, what are you doing? And I was like, being honest, because the other girl did not hit it. So I'm known as the girl who just threw the ball at the ref and walked away. So that was probably the most embarrassing moment, because literally that was like the one game our boys basketball team came to, and that's what happened. And I was literally like, this is what I get for being honest. This is what I get. And usually I would have tried playing it off, but it was one of those games where, not that I was ready for it to be over, but it was one of those I was like, just take it. You know what I mean? And yeah, so that's probably the most embarrassing. Most exciting. Gotta really think. My most exciting was probably the first time I hit a 3-pointer, which I know doesn't sound super crazy, but considering I was a straight 5 up until 2 years ago, and this happened totally on accident when I was still very much a straight 5. My guard had like lost the ball, and I went and got it, and I was at the top of my key, and I didn't even know where my defender was, and my whole team's like, shoot it, and I was like, all right, it's on you if it's an air ball, I guess. And I made it, and everyone just started freaking out, and it was just a really cool feeling.
Hey, I know that feeling. Well, not personally, but how many times have post players been categorized as that? Of course, now it's all about stretch 4s. You don't see too many traditional 5s anymore, which is fine. I do like, there's a part of me that cheers when the big tall post players that aren't supposed to be mobile, that aren't supposed to operate outside the paint, prove all of us foolish or make fools out of all of us when they knock down threes. So I'll cheer any post player who can hit a 3-pointer. But I'm curious, Katelyn, how many times have people come up to you or during games, well, presuming we're back to normal, whether it's the boys team or others, who remember that moment where you hand the ball to the ref and got called for traveling because the other team had, I guess, touched it or nullified, or your team, or and I think, yeah, one of your teammates must have touched the ball or deflected it to prevent the over and back, but you're known as the woman who committed a travel while handing the ref the ball.
Yeah. Doesn't happen too much anymore. I think it's kind of been overshadowed by the past couple of seasons where
by that 3-pointer of yours, I bet.
Yes, the 3-pointer knocked it clean off. But that whole year, anytime we'd have a game, I would come back to school the next day, and there would be a boys who played on the boys basketball team who was like, did you hand the ball to the ref at all? And I was like, just shut up, go away. You guys lost last night. I don't want to hear it. So that's usually how I handle that. But it's pretty calmed down now. But we're not going to bring it back up.
We already did. No.
Hopefully no one listens to this.
Yeah.
At the end of it now. Nobody cares that I'm going to Augustana. I'll just be known as the girl who handed the ball to the ref. God.
You know what, though? I'm sure, at least when you go to Augustana, I'm pretty sure you will now pay more attention to an officiating signal. So if you see an official make that, like, say it was deflected, if he or she makes that signal, you'll know right away, okay, I can't hand it to the ref. I gotta pick it back up. So I'm convinced, yes, it was embarrassing, but I'm convinced now it will never happen again, just because it already did.
Learned my lesson, yes.
What would you say to prospective athletes? I imagine there are a few young females out there who live in your area, or maybe they'll hear of your story elsewhere, but you spoke earlier, and this has been a common theme, how kids of your profile in Class A, where you're not just playing for one school, one town, you're having to join all these co-ops. So you're representing 7 towns, I think, or 6 or 7. I don't. There are a lot of names to fit in there. Yes, too many to count for me. But you are the next example of someone who can grow up in that background where maybe there aren't as many opportunities to get noticed as Hopkins, for example, or Becker recently, or Minnehaha, some of the perennials that have developed a lot of talent in basketball, and deservedly so. But here you are, and maybe you don't get the most wins. Maybe you don't go to state every year, but your name is going to be on that list. Your senior season, I'm sure you talked about already getting some publicity for your college commitment. So you are proof that someone like you can get something out of athletics. How do you think that will inspire younger athletes to come after you?
I would say, well, I'm going to share a quote, and it kind of works, but not really. Ratatouille used to be my favorite movie, and the big line in Ratatouille was, anyone can cook. And then at the end of the movie, you hear Anton Ego saying, not everyone can cook, but a cook can come from anywhere. And I've always took that throughout my life and anything I do, in the sense, Adam Thielens, who is now a professional basketball player, he just went to MSU. He didn't even go D1. Don't ever put a limit on yourself because of where you come from, the type of person you are, where you stand financially, where your grades are. Just anything in life, never put a limit on yourself. I guess I would say never let society make you believe that there's a limit on you because of some factor in your life. I would just say, for me, I'm pretty religious, and I would just say, put your faith and trust in God. And like I said, everything just kind of lined up for me, and everything worked out. And there have been so many situations in my life where I've been so stressed and I didn't know how I was going to do it. And then all of a sudden I woke up one day and everything was just handled. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. It's neat. Don't know why I was stressing now, but I would just say, continue to do your part. Don't try and be like all of these bigger school kids and stuff. Find what you are naturally good at and really just harness that. And then just, if you really love the game or the sport or whatever you're working at, it'll all come. Because if you really love it, you'll put the work in. And at the end of the day, hard work beats talent, and talent fails to work hard.
Katelyn, I am curious if you're prepared for the high school to college transition, because I guess, which town do you represent? I know you have the co-op, but are you in Grenada or?
So I actually represent the smallest of all 5 towns, believe it or not. I am from Huntley, the H in GHEC. So I go to school in Grenada, but I represent the H. My town has about 70 people when everyone's having a family reunion. So I'm not so much nervous for the transition as when it comes to the level of playing basketball, just because with Augustana's program, they usually redshirt their freshmen, just so that they can not only adjust to the athletics side of it, but also just the college life, which I think is really nice. And because I have been playing AAU, and these are all college prospect kids, you know what I mean? So it's not like I'm going straight from Class A1 to Division II basketball. The part I'm definitely the most nervous about is going from driving 20 minutes for milk to walking a block for my milk. Just getting used to that and having to pay for parking. I just think that is the stupidest thing to this day. I swear. Oh, I'm gonna have to look for keep a bunch of quarters in a cup holder or something, because I will never be able to park, because I think that is stupid. But yeah.
So, in my head, I'm going, do we file that under the redneck category that we've listed? Yeah, and I would be like, oh, well, that's a common thing up here.
No.
But the reason I asked, I was kind of teasing, is because you're in a town with 70 people, and Sioux Falls, that area has close to 200,000, if not more. So I'm going, are you ready to make that jump?
Guess we'll find out. Well, I can't disappoint my coffee guys, so I'm just going to have to learn to roll with it. They will be my motivation for all of it.
I was going to say, or you said earlier, maybe you won't have to because you'll be within walking distance for milk and all the other things that you had to.
True. I'm glad you brought that up.
Commute for. I was going to say, not to mention how many roads will be paved over. I'm guessing at Huntley there aren't too many. Or
we have a total of 2. The most stop signs you will have to stop for in our town is 2, and one of them is because of a railroad crossing. So we have 2 county roads that go through Huntley, County Road 1 and County Road 10. Yes, the rest of them are gravel.
Well, and I'm guessing you got a taste of it already because you made the visit, and where you are, you're not that far away from Augustana. So
yeah.
I smell a spinoff though, Katelyn, from everything you've told me about the town you're in to your own living space and having cornfield. And I'm going, we could get some mileage out of this. So like, I saw though you've got a hoop in your driveway, or is that like, okay, that's yours?
Yes.
So there's a place. So so for family reunions, so they all just meet up and play a pickup game, or?
So, fun story. My mom has 3 other siblings. 2 of them are brothers. One of them's a sister, and they are all so stubborn and competitive. It is the stupidest thing you've ever seen. They're just like their dad. It's not even funny. But the youngest brother and my mom, so my mom actually went to SMSU to play tennis, and the younger brother likes tennis too. So they'll have like tennis matches every once in a while. They're both in their 40s, but if one person makes a snarky comment, oh, really? Bet. Let's go to the tennis court 20 miles away just to prove a point. And said younger brother has, my uncle, my mom's younger brother, has a son who is a year younger than me. They're actually from Lakeville, but he used to be pretty into basketball. And again, like there's a little bit of my mom and me. I'm a little stubborn, I guess. But so one of us will make a snarky comment, and then we'll be like, all right, driveway now. We'll play a quick game of 1-on-1. And they'll all grab their lawn chairs and they'll just be sitting there. And my poor grandma, she's the most non-competitive person you've ever met. I don't know how she ended up with my grandpa, but she's everyone just like, can't we just get along? Don't hurt each other. Oh, let them get a basket so it's a tie game at the end. It's like, no, grandma. All's fair in love and war.
Okay, so lesson learned, Mike. Don't go into Deadpool mode if I call one of your games, because otherwise the GHEC will, that you specifically will challenge me to the driveway. No, and I would be laughed out of the gym. My athletic skills are limited, which makes it weird because officially I'm a basketball analyst now, and I'm still getting used to that label because I ran into a colleague of mine. We joked about writing for competing outlets or rival outlets because both of us are involved in these recruiting publications, but we're both getting paid to cover basketball. So like, we can't complain about that. But I remember she told me, like, this is so hard because I'm not a writer. And I'm going, well, I'm not a coach or a player, so I'm not sure like what makes me qualified as an analyst. So, but I guess people think I know what I'm talking about, or I've done a very clever job deceiving them this whole time.
You know what? I handed the ball to the ref. You fake it till you make it. You just kind of got to go with it. You know, if I could go to a college for basketball after handing the ball to the ref, I have faith.
And in my case, I'll say this too for others who maybe follow my background. Okay, maybe I can't call out horns as well as a coach or player can, but I say this all the time. You look for patterns. You see what you see. In my case, how does a player respond after making a mistake? How do they work in sets? What is the ball movement like? And how is it? You do pick up on something. So maybe I can't identify the vocabulary as easily as you can, but I've gotten the hang of it, and there are fellow kids or athletes who have said that I know the game. So I guess I'll take that. That is hilarious, though. Your family. I mean, at least it sounds like at least it's a healthy way of conflict resolution as opposed to sillier means. But that is a very amusingly stubborn way to settle a conflict. It's all right. Let's go to the tennis court. Let's go to the back driveway. We're gonna settle it.
Yeah, it's healthy until they're trying to do it in like flip flops and like slide.
I was gonna say, yeah, you can't you gotta. I was gonna say, take it from an athlete. You can't hoop like that.
Doesn't matter. Safety, not an issue.
I'm just going, but it's like you play the sport. You know you can't hoop in flip flops. I'm like, no, you.
Not if you want. Ooh, no.
Not if you want to hit a 3-pointer or do what you're doing. I don't know. I'm gonna probably regret asking this, but who wins the most out of all the one-on-one whenever you have these throwdowns? Who wins most of them? Between
me and my cousin?
Your cousin or whoever ends up challenging you.
Oh, it's usually me, just because my mom's side of the family is so short. My mom's the tallest, and she's like 5'8". She's taller than all of her brothers. So my cousin's like 5'6", and that's like in boots. I'm giving him grace. So it's not that, and he's a little bit younger than me, and he goes to this like a city school, so he'll be trying to do all this like fancy crossover kind of back stuff, and it's kind of funny because he'll like do all his little stuff, and then he gets to the hoop and block. It's just kind of a click. But yeah, between my mom and my uncle, though, it gets intense. My mom is definitely more like technically skilled, but my uncle, he just pulls this stuff out of I don't know where, and he'll end up, I don't know. I don't even know. I don't really want to know either. I just sit with grandma like, we couldn't just eat our burgers in peace. No, okay. Usually that's how it goes.
Must be something in those wings from the Granada Bar and Grill, I think. If I got that. Yeah. If I said the name right, that's probably what it is.
Very good. See, he can be taught basketball and Southern no man's land language.
That's never going to get out of my head now. That your whole family will challenge each other when they feel slighted.
Never fails. I think the only time it didn't happen was my grandpa's funeral. I think it did at the station though. It did at the
God. Like,
not the funeral. The funeral was good. We kept the peace.
I'm like, I hope I'm like, could you imagine how awkward that would be?
Oh,
I mean, you probably would have laughed it off because you're used to it, but I'm like, I hope they at least kept the composure long enough.
To get it from him, so honestly, it might have been fitting in remembrance of him to pull out their stubbornness. I love them, but some days I'm like, shut up. This is the stupidest thing. No. There's just aren't even words for how stupid it is sometimes.
I mean, you have your breaking point, but it sounds like for the most part, you're almost the voice of reason within the family going like, why are we doing this?
I've always been, when my mom, or when I was probably 8, my mom would come to me with like problems she was having at work or something, and she'd call me an 18-year-old in an 8-year-old body. So one of the paths I'm considering following education-wise is law. So whenever I tell people that, they're like, yeah, be a lawyer. I'm like, okay.
So how would your mother describe you now that you're closer to an 18-year-old's body? You're not 8 anymore. So how does that work now?
It's definitely held up, I would say. My mom always jokes that I have like the personality disorder, because depending the situation, I'm 2 different people. If I'm just with friends and having fun, I'm the loud, funny, extrovert one, and if it's more of a serious conversation, I'm definitely the voice of reason and the I definitely turn into the lawyer. Like, people have always said that ever since I was
younger, kids in my class would joke, you should be a lawyer. And now that I'm like actually considering it, they're like, yeah, we know, we've been telling you. Because anytime I'll be in a class, this is where the competitive side comes out. There's one boy in my class. I'm ranked number 3 and he's ranked number 1. And we get into it sometimes about answers. And his idea is, I'm right, you're wrong. My idea is, well, statistically speaking. So it gets really funny. And the whole class just sits there and laughs at us. But yeah, I'd still definitely have that maturity level in me. But I also have, now it's, sometimes I'm an 8-year-old in an 18-year-old's body. And sometimes I'm an 8-year-old in an 18-year-old's body. So it just kind of, yeah.
Well, I have a suggestion for this classmate of yours that you're competing with in terms of GPA. Well, I'll say this first. I'll say this before I get into that. Like, as you get older, you notice that you realize folks really don't care as much about that. I mean, I know when you're going for scholarships and you're covered, of course, so that's taken care of. And now that the NIL deal is a thing, well, maybe you can take your basketball branding to the next level. We'll see. A lot to unpack there. But in my head, I'm going, okay, so this fellow classmate of yours, I know how we settle this.
We go to the driveway.
Well, the driveway, I was going to say, because we're dealing in a different realm, and I don't know his background in athletics, I'm going, the two of you should settle this with Jeopardy.
Yes.
A game of Jeopardy.
Yes. Actually, no, I don't know. It could be really good or really bad because he doesn't really do like TV and stuff. So he's very into like, he plays the Constantina. Like that's the little, I don't even know, you know, the squeeze box, you know what I'm talking about? So he's into all of that stuff. So unless it was like Harry Potter or basketball related, he might win.
I was going to say, but that's what Jeopardy is all about, though. You never know what comes up on the game, whether it's the video game or the show, it's everything.
Yeah.
But I think that would be the way to settle it.
Good plan. I'll bring that up.
Well, if it's a go, just let me know. Then maybe I'll find my way down to Huntley and we can broadcast.
Be the announcer.
Yeah, I would announce. Yes, I would play the. Well, I would play the host.
Yeah.
Oh man. So I guess you did give us a clue. I almost forgot. That's another thing I'd like to bring up. So is law a career you're considering, or what else are you looking at? Of course, you still have a year of high school left, so I don't want you to grow up too fast, but what are some avenues you're considering, whether they involve law or basketball, or maybe something else that we'll hear your name in publications for?
So I am undecided right now, mainly because my areas of interest are kind of all across the board. Like I said, law, education, agronomy, I don't even really know. I kind of have interest in a little bit of everything. Marketing, public speaking, communications. Yeah, they're kind of all across the board. So just kind of wait until I take a couple more classes to kind of decide what I want to hone in on, I guess.
Fair enough. It sounds like law might be one of your options, and who knows, maybe you'll find a way to work all of that into your career path. We've covered a lot of ground, Katelyn, but I am wondering, is there anything else about your story in sports, in school, or even just in this redneck town of, I don't know if I should have said that. Now they're all going to come after me, but we say that in jest.
Half coffee, you really made Earl mad.
What?
You really made Earl mad.
Oh, I made Earl mad.
Yeah, Earl will come for you.
Earl's going to come for me. No, and we say that in jest, of course, not as a derogatory term, but anything else about your story that you would like to share?
I guess not so much about my story. Kind of about my story. More just as like a words of advice, because we've been relatively talking about what would I say to, people in a position like me. kind of goes along with what I said earlier. You know, you can come from anywhere and be just as good as the people from the bigger schools or bigger towns. It's okay to doubt yourself during times. There were many times where I was like, Katelyn, who are you kidding? You can't go to, you know, a D2 school. You're not in the fancy weight programs and all that stuff. But I guess what I would say is don't let your doubting stop you from continuing to work. Just the biggest advice my mom has probably ever given me in life came a few months ago, where I was just really scared about the whole not getting scholarships because of the whole MSIC one more year thing. She told me, yeah, you might not, but what if you could? And what if you stopped working right now because of it, and then you never even gave yourself the chance? So I guess what I would say is, if it's something you do want, don't quit working at it. If it doesn't happen, then it's not meant to happen. At least you'll be in better shape at the end of it. So, you know, got to take your pluses. I would just you're allowed to doubt, and you're allowed to like be afraid. That's a part of being a person and a human. Just don't let that fear and doubt cloud your love for the sport or whatever it is you love.
I find that very prescient advice, because in my field with broadcasting and writing, I imagine a lot of us, I know I went through that, were wondering what the future was going to be like and if there would be room for us whenever it was safe to venture out in crowds again. And obviously there's a long time between now and next winter, so we'll see how everything unfolds. But I remember when I got on the AAU beat and started seeing some familiar faces, they would say hi, or they'd said, "Oh, we missed you," or "It's good to see you back at the gym." So I get what you're saying, though, with COVID resulting in an extra year of eligibility for athletes affected by it. And in my case, everything going to streaming. And another thing, as I discovered later on, is that the streaming services were helpful when people couldn't come together at gyms, but parents and coaches told me you never knew what you would get out of those, because with Pixelot, they're useful, but they're not foolproof. So if you're on a fast break, it can't keep up with, for example, and other parents told me how brutal it was to watch games without any commentary.
Yeah.
So I'd like to think there's still some room for myself. We'll see what happens, of course, but it's been fun just getting a chance to glimpse at some of the talents and some of the players that I might not normally see in the high school circuit. Well, I certainly don't get around to seeing Iowa and Wisconsin and Dakota teams like I've been able to this summer, and even in-state getting a chance to, I think it was one of the Comets teams has a kid from Albany who won the 2A state title, for example, or getting to hear about athletes like yourself who might be too far away for me to get to easily in terms of location, but with AAU, they all come together.
Yeah.
Do they get the following that the high school tournaments do? No, but it's like, hey, it's fine, and it gives me a crash course. So if I get a chance to cover you in a game, or others who I've seen on the AAU circuit, well, now I've got that information.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we've covered a lot of ground, and I am amusingly bewildered at some of the rituals that happen in your towns when it comes to sporting events with your own family and how they get around. I guess I have to give them points for original thinking, innovation, yes, to get around capacity restrictions. So if they can't be there in person, they'll just go to the bars. Well, I'm wondering how that might affect attendance, though, next for all the bars. I mean, how are they going to go to your games? Because, I mean, obviously you can't serve alcohol at high school facilities. So.
They might have to now if they want to sell tickets.
Yeah, except I don't think they'd be allowed to, because in an area like, you're still technically a minor, so like there might be some rules about that. But it sounds like, though, you did what you could, and it's fortunate that you didn't have to worry about an outbreak affecting your team. I know
Mhm.
some schools were hit. Some had to end their seasons early because of that. You were able to evade its grasp, but it seems like whether it's on your basketball team, your family, or the town, you're kind of the one that tries to keep everyone focused on the big picture, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely try to keep people from falling off the I joke my parents jokingly say I keep everyone from falling off the edge of the earth when we're like having family stuff like that. So yeah, it's kind of my role, I guess.
Or in your case, you probably keep them from falling off and falling into Iowa.
Yes, yes. Tricky old eye.
Because you're, like you said, you're within spitting distance of the border.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll leave you with this since we have a few more AAU events left. I know you're doing the meltdown, and I'm not sure what comes after that. But after a shortened season last year where you got to compete in a few events, but you couldn't go out of state, for example, or at least you couldn't play out of state teams like you've been able to this year. What are you most excited about now that your college commitment has been secured? We hope you'll have a normal season. We'll see what happens by November, but what are you most excited about as you wrap up your final club season and get ready to have what will hopefully be a more normal senior season?
I would probably say the thing that I'm the most excited about is not necessarily the freedom, but more so the weight that's been kind of lifted off my back, just because it is stressful and it is a decent amount of pressure. Every time you go out there playing, there's coaches watching and all that stuff. So just the past few tournaments where I've been able to just play, knowing that if I have a bad game, it sucks. You never want to have a bad game, but it's much easier to let go, I guess I would say. And just having that weight off my back and just allowing me to play more freely, I've definitely seen that I'm probably playing a lot better than I have been, just, not so worried about it.
And for anyone who makes a trek through Huntley or that area, the cafe you work at, I don't know what name it goes by, but what would be your recommendations in terms of drinks or foods for any prospective visitors of that cafe?
Okay, so it's just named Huntley Cafe. Like I said, it also doubles as our post office. So, they have the best chocolate cake with peanut butter frosting. And she was a cook in the Air Force before opening this cafe. So it's very hearty meal portions. You get a burger probably this big, I kid you not, with a side of fries probably this big for $5. But this cake, they're about this big, this thick. The peanut butter itself is that thick on top. Oh my goodness, it is the best thing in the world, whether it's comfort food, celebratory food, you just can't beat it.
Sounds like that could cover 2 meals for me. My stomach isn't as big as it once was, or my appetite, I should say. So when you're talking about the portion sizes, I'm going, okay, well, I'll have to keep that in mind if I make the trek down there. But Katelyn, I enjoyed getting to know you. Again, amazed how quickly this came together. But if you follow my podcast series on a regular basis, listeners will know that I like to feature athletes who have announced their college commitments to give them a timely platform to share their stories so that Augustana fans can get to know a little bit more about you, and that your followers with GHECTML can learn more about you too. I've had some guests who have come from the smaller towns where, like you said, there isn't a lot to do in terms of entertainment options. So everybody goes to the games, whether it's, well, football, I'm guessing is a co-op too, whether it's the high school sports, or I'm not sure what else all these towns do, but kind of a fun way to put yourself out to the masses. And as we talked about earlier, maybe there's another Katelyn Diegnau type of athlete watching this from Huntley, or maybe on the other end of the border in Roseau or some other place, who might take a page of inspiration from this.
Oh, I'm glad. Good.
Well, I appreciate you coming on to share your story, and I will keep my eyes peeled for the schedule, and maybe I'll have to swing down to Huntley or Grenada, wherever the high school is. Because, well, I've got 11,000 YouTube subscribers, so I'm like, there's an audience. I can give you a bigger audience, so if, or at least help expand. So if people don't know who you are, folks going, yeah, we don't get a lot of attention with these Class A schools. I'm like, well, I might be able to help with that. I just have to work my way through the other 50 schools and teams that want me at their games. But I appreciate how quickly this came together, and I'm appreciative at how honest and open you were about your background as an athlete and making it to this point. So I certainly hope you're able to enjoy the remainder of the AAU season, and that we don't have to go through all these hoops to cover your games next winter.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I've had a lot of fun.
This definitely was. And if I've learned nothing else, it's to watch what I say if I attend any family gatherings of yours. Otherwise, I may find myself in the middle of a basketball or tennis challenge.
Yeah, yep. It gets rowdy.
Well, Katelyn Diegnau of GHECTML, soon to be an Augustana Viking. So you can make the trek to Sioux Falls along I-90 if you want to follow her college journey when that begins in 2022. Thanks again.
Of course. Thank you.
And if you want to be a guest for a future episode of this series, just contact us at tsbtelevision@gmail.com or on social media at @TheMikePeden on Twitter or Instagram. All you need is a story, and we're happy to share it. So until next time, thanks for watching.